love designer bags. Luxury fashion in general. Okay, to the point that, you know, apparently I've managed to make a career out of it. But even if you're not a seasoned subscriber, you know, maybe you just stumbled across this video, maybe this is the first time you're seeing this face. It probably took you 0.4 seconds to realise that I love designer bags. But what do they really cost? Okay, we see that little RRP sticker. We see those 3, 4, 5 figures on a price for one of these babies. How much of that is markup? What does it actually cost to make a designer bag? And if the markup is huge, what are we actually paying for within that markup? I'm not gonna lie, I think I've been pretty naive about sort of designer things because I've always just sort of like been in love with them, right? So I've always been able to, rightly or wrongly, justify things in my mind. And I knew that there was a markup, okay? I'm not stupid, I've been to an outlet, I know they're still making money on top of that, right? But I sort of didn't really realise how big that markup was. Guys, if you are new here, my name is Cassie and I'm a self-diagnosed luxury addict. I put out videos on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, so if you like luxury fashion, then you're going to love it here. So head down there, subscribe, turn on the bell, become a member of our luxury addicted family. When are we going to rehab? Never. Like I said, I knew generally based on outlet prices, sale prices that are, you know, let's say 50, 60, sometimes 70% off. Those brands are still making money on top of those products. They're not losing, they're not giving these things away. About a year ago, I stumbled across Tanner Leatherstein on TikTok. Unsure if you're familiar with this man, but basically he takes a Stanley knife to a number of designer bags. There's maybe like, I think he's done about 10 designer bags. He is a leather expert, so he deconstructs these pieces to basically comment on the quality, the craftsmanship, and crucially, he gives you an idea of how much this would cost to make. And then obviously the difference between that and the RRP is the markup. And then he also tends to comment on whether or not he thinks that the markup is sort of fair. It's fascinating stuff. And like I said, me being the naive one, you know, I'd seen articles about these things over the years and whatever, but I think it was really different in this sort of form of, I don't know, apparently all it took was a guy to take a knife to a designer bag for me to be like, hold on a second, you know? If you haven't seen any of his videos, I thought that I would now take a moment to give you a recap of his designer findings, okay? So, let's start off with the Louis Vuitton Neverfull in the Empreinte print leather. For something like this, he said it costs around $260 to make. That is for the leather, a rough idea of sort of the accessories and, you know, like the hardware on it, and also the labour cost. Now, he paid $2,710 for that bag. What he does tend to say with a lot of his designer bags is that if the brand, the name means something to you, then maybe it's worth it. But if you don't care about that, then obviously there are cheaper options. He also did the Saint Laurent Lou crossbody. Again, an estimate of $160 to make. That goes for $1,690. The Gucci Super Mini Dionysus, he was actually quite impressed with quality of the leather and how everything was really well put together. That one was estimated $115 to make. It retails for $1,100. Now, one that particularly interested me was the Loewe puzzle bag because, you know, I'm always very impressed purely as a layman, having a touch of the leather there, that I always tend to think that Loewe's leather is really good. I mean, that is how the brand was created. So I was interested to sort of hear his opinion, and he basically said that he really liked the leather choice. He also thought that the design was really complex to put together, and for that his estimate is $170, and how much was it? $2,450 was paid. Now, his most recent designer deconstruction is the La Chiquito, and he thought that this one was quite a fair price for it. It's about $80 to put together. He wasn't particularly a fan of like the hardware, but generally, you know, they retail for about $600, just under that. He thought that was all right. Now, his highest rated designer bag at the end of 2022, he basically said, these are my top picks. And he took a knife to the Bottega Veneta Mini Arco Tote. and he was really, really impressed throughout the whole thing. The quality of the leather, the amount of leather that goes into making a tote like that with the intrecciato weave, the fact that it's double-sided leather, the craftsmanship, the complexity of the design, he was really sort of like quite over the moon with that one. For something like that to be made, he estimated $250 and the retail price is $2,500. He also does it for mid-range bags, a couple of which Marc Jacobs micro tote he thought had a fair markup, about $80 to make, $325 retail. And the Coach pillow tabby bag in the mini size, about $65 to make, retails for $695. Now, to sort of verify his estimates, because what do I know? All right, I'm just looking, this man's got Leatherstein as his, username, and I'm like, you seem to know what you're talking about. He does very clearly state in all of his videos that this is his personal estimate, this is how much he thinks, he's not saying like definitively it costs this amount to make, right? Anyway, I stumbled across a Financial Times article. Oh my gosh, Financial Times, who is she? I know. It featured two fashion analysts, anonymous fashion analysts, who basically said that whilst his estimates are very simplistic and on the low end, he's not too far off, right? Most of his sort of like markups imply a sort of 90% markup, okay? Whereas they say it's more around the 80-85%. We know since 2020, it has been price increase after price increase, and it has been egregious, okay? Some brands are really taking the piss, let's be honest, okay? The sort of justification for these, and these brands never really quite sort of give us the ins and outs of why they're doing it, but generally the consensus is production costs have increased, cost of materials have increased, both of those, sort of because of the pandemic and whatnot. And also, more recently, it's been inflation. Whilst that might be one reason as to why they're putting the prices up, the real reason is because they can. And there's other motives, right? Positioning in the market. We know that Chanel is doing it to sort of give itself a bit more exclusivity. There are lots of brands, especially within bags, who do a bit more direct to consumer, are made in the same factories as these designer brands, but they don't have the logo, they don't have the markup, blah, blah, blah. All of these new brands, new designers, all of this coming into the market, some of these heavy hitters want to differentiate themselves, and one of the ways of doing that is through price increases. So what are we paying for with these markups, okay? There's a lot that goes into running a designer fashion brand. By no means are the list of items that I'm going to go through today exhaustive, but these are just some, right? Marketing, ad spend, spreads in Vogue, Elle, Harper's Bazaar, all of that costs to buy the ad space. But on top of that, the production of the ad itself, photographers, on-set stylists, you've got celebrity ambassadorships. Zendaya is a new Louis Vuitton ambassador. Jennifer Lawrence is a Dior ambassador. Miley Cyrus is a Gucci ambassador. All of these celebrities will have a contract in place and a fee, for however long they'll be harping on around about the brand and all of that. That gets built into it. Influencer partnerships, influencer gifting, pop-up stores. Vendace happened last year. There were pop-ups all over the world to celebrate the rental of those spaces. More recently, you've got Jacquemus, Gucci, Dior, and I want to say one more, Louis Vuitton, have all sort of branded beach clubs this year in like the south of France. Sun lounges that are all branded and whatever and all of this. Experiences. Louis Vuitton held their trunk exhibition that, sort of like hopped around a couple of different spots across the globe, free to enter, but part of the markup would be to put something like that on. Shipping costs, customs, legal fees. All right, Hermes recently took Mason Rothschild to court over the Meta Birkin NFTs something or other, right? Legal fees involved in that. The customer service teams, physical brick and mortar stores. And because these are designer brands, they're not on some back alley in somewhere you've never heard of, right? Okay, it's in major cities and on the biggest shopping streets in those major cities, the streets that most likely have the highest rent. And because once again it's a designer store, this isn't a little hole in the wall. It's got to be a decent sized space with high ceilings and whatever so that you can feel it, so you can be given a luxury experience. That costs. Retail workers and retail operations that go along with that. Not to mention the runway shows, the venues, the models, the production behind it all, the design teams, couture ateliers, creative director salaries. Just off the top of my head, the list goes on. But every aspect of these huge luxury conglomerates has to be paid for, and that is built into all of these markups. I did also want to take into account smaller luxury brands, okay? Because that is all of the big ones. Smaller luxury brands as well do tend to be more approachable price points than the big ones. They still have to charge a decent markup because they don't have the quantity that a lot of these big brands have that, you know, warrant sort of economies of scale. They also, if they're starting out, they will have to pay for a venue for their show and all of this if they're on a show calendar. So after all of this, okay, why do we keep buying? Why don't you just go and buy a super fake if you don't care about the shows and, you know, a brick and mortar store and all of this business? One reason a few years ago that would have sort of held a bit more clout than it does now is the quality. Quality argument used to be a big one for me, right? I buy these things knowing that they're going to outlive me. We keep seeing quality complaint after quality complaint from some of these brands in particular. And yes, we now know that there are lots of other brands coming into the market that can give you similar quality. It's not as much of an argument as it was before. One of the reasons, pure and simple, are the designs. Sometimes you just like what it looks like and any alternatives aren't hitting it for you, you know? Another reason is resale value. And whilst I do like a video each year about sort of investment value of bags and all of that, the majority of them, you're not going to get back what you spent after all of these websites take their cuts and whatever, okay? Really, your resale value, you're looking at Hermes, you're looking at your Birkins, your Kellys. You're still going to get, should you want to sell your bag, more of a percent of what you spent back selling a branded bag than you are from one that's not. And another big factor, and this is one that, like, I think people shy away from. I don't think people sort of want to admit that it's for this, even though I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with it. But it's what that logo means. It's about the status, the prestige and all of that. That is a large part of luxury fashion. And I think people don't like sort of admitting this because it's almost as though, like, there's this implication that if you have designer things or if you have a designer bag or whatever, you sort of think you're better than everybody because you do, but it's not about that. And actually, maybe at the moment that might be the opposite, right? Because quiet luxury and being logoless is the trend, and you know, that's what looks rich and wealthy and all of this business, right? But I am a self-described, self-admitted logo ho. I love a sodding logo. I always have, right? And some people are like, oh, you're a walking advertisement for the brand. Sod it. I love it. It plays into the design for me, right? Example, this. First thing, here we go, this little ridiculous Saint Laurent lunchbox. If this Saint Laurent lunchbox did not have the metal logo or any of this embossing that has the logo on it, do we think I'd be interested? And if it was just a simple leather Happy Meal looking box bag, do you think I'd be interested? No, I wouldn't. Let's be honest. And it's okay that you value those things, and it's all right if you don't either. This is the thing, my style is more, you know, maximalist, I guess. And maybe if I was more of a minimalist, maybe like the logo and stuff like that wouldn't play into my factors at all. So again, it comes down to your style and what you value. And if you value the logo and you value the fact that it's a designer good, then that's fine. Finally, maybe this is justification for me. Once again, I am an enthusiast, okay? As in, people collect Pokemon cards, right? And action figures, and cars, dolls, sneakers, coins, stamps, all of those things. People have collections, okay? And sometimes when the collection is for expensive things, people tend to make a judgment or think that you're stupid for spending your money that way, right? This is the thing. I love this stuff. I know at the end of the day it means nothing, okay? I'm well aware of that, and it's important to know that. But while I'm here, I love it. I love the art of it. I've bought into the fantasy of it, whether that's right or wrong. And obviously, you should always make the decision that is right for you. If you want to make a decision on what's better value for money for you and all of this, then maybe you don't buy a designer bag, or you buy a Bottega one if you want to listen to Tanner Leatherstein or whatever, right? But if you do value a logo, then that's fine as well. And I don't think there should be judgment either way. What are your thoughts? I'm going to leave a link to another video over here in case you haven't already seen it. Have an amazing morning, afternoon or evening wherever you are. And in the words of my father,
if you've enjoyed it, tell your friends. If you haven't, keep your mouth shut.
I'll see you on my next one. Mwah. Bye guys.